Hey everybody, Brady here, also known in some odd corners of the internet as War Hamster, here with another episode of what we call the Grassroots Spotlight, where we talk about people from everyday walks of life who are making a difference trying to make this country a better place. Joining me today is Sheriff Mack from the CSPOA, that is the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. How you doing, Sheriff Mack?
Hey, I'm doing great, War Hamster. I'm great. Great. Love it. Love life. Love being here, and love the work I'm a part of. The freedom movement is something that I spend full time on, and both my wife and I. And so it's a great day for freedom. And thank you so much for having me again.
No, it's your third time on my channel, which makes you the current record holder. And my audience has really responded great to the last couple times you were on. So it's a no-brainer. Anytime you have a chance to come on my show, I'm going to make the time to do it.
Well, thank you.
So I thought we would start by playing a quick promo from the CSPOA. It's a 1-minute little clip. And we'll use that to segue into everything you're up to today. So I am going to hit play.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At CSPOA.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit CSPOA.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's CSPOA.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
Hey, love it.
That's a nice promo. How's that, guys? Is the CSPOA still growing?
Yeah, of course. And mostly by the people who are like on your show and your supporters. It's people that are making it happen. And in the beginning, when sheriffs came to us, they said, hey, a constituent of mine told me to come to your seminar. A constituents or even way back when, it was the Tea Party groups really told me in my county to get involved with you. And hey, Mike, I keep getting calls, people asking me if I'm a constitutional sheriff. I said yes, but I'm not sure I know what that is. So some sheriffs actually say I am a constitutional sheriff because I'm a constitutionally elected office. But being a constitutional sheriff really boils down to, do you know and understand the Constitution, and do you enforce it? And do you keep it? Do you uphold, defend, protect, and preserve the United States Constitution? And so most of them have never read it. And the bottom line beyond that is, are they familiar with my Supreme Court case, my Supreme Court victory against the Clinton administration? And do they abide by the precepts that Scalia put in that? Because it's very principle based. A lot of times you don't get a Supreme Court case that goes through the history of an issue and then quotes the Federalist Papers, quotes the Constitution, quotes the Founding Fathers, and really gave us a huge history lesson as to why the federal government is not the boss of the states and is not the boss of the sheriffs. And it really boiled down to that. Can the federal government commandeer the office of sheriff for federal bidding without any contractual negotiation or any type of agreement? And the answer was a resounding no. They cannot do that. They do not have the power. And he even talks about the sphere of authority for each, the states versus the federal government. And so federalism is very much defined by Justice Scalia in this most miraculous Supreme Court case. And I know I showed it before, but I'll show it again. This is the little book that every one of your listeners, supporters, viewers, anyone who really supports American freedom should have this case. And I'll show it there so that you can see the title. Look, it fits in your shirt pocket. It's only 16 pages long. It's very thin. but it's the most powerful little booklet you can have with you, except maybe for a pocket Constitution or a pocket Bible. Everyone needs to have this. Look, if you just bought one, it would cost you $3. I guess we could do one, but you need to order dozens of these. So you pass them out to local officials. Make sure your governor gets one. Make sure your state reps, especially in your area, get one. And if they will read this, they will have to look at their jobs differently, because that's what this is all about. It is totally so powerfully constitutional, foundational, and based on the principles that America was based on.
Yeah, it's really well said. You know, it's funny. I first met Sheriff Mack. I don't know if he'll remember that one, but did a guest speaker appearance in Temecula, California, for an event that my good friend, everyone on my channel knows, Douglas V. Gibbs, Mr. Constitution, was doing. And Sheriff Mack was talking about, well, it's the first time I read that booklet. And, you know, it's a good thing. And it's funny, we're going to circle back to Riverside County, where Temecula is, here in a second. But no, it's interesting because Doug and I are currently doing a very long series on Madison's notes on the Constitution. If you want to talk about the original intent of the Constitution, you need to go back and hear the words of the people who wrote the darn document. And everything Sheriff Mack just said is spot on. They debated ad nauseum what federalism actually meant. And the part we're at right now is a couple of the clowns were actually trying to propose a federal negative on state laws. And as we know, that didn't make it through to the final copy, but it's really interesting debate. They thought about these things very thoroughly, and they came up with a conclusion. It's basically what Sheriff Mack just explained. Federalism is the law of the land.
Right. And oh, by the way, folks, you can purchase these on our website. We even have it in digital form if you need that. But it's hard. Well, yeah, you could pass around the digital form, I guess. But these are great to hand. This is a great way to introduce yourself to your sheriff. Hand him one of these, and it's available at the website. Now, some people claim it's hard to find, but it shows the picture of it in the if you go to shopping or whatever it is. It shows my hand on it. So look for this little booklet with my hand on it, and I'm going to navigate to make it more prominent.
Where am I navigating to find that on the website? I got it up right now.
Okay, good.
Well, here's the website. You will quick links. Where do we have?
I guarantee you it's in there, but it's not as prominent as I would like to do it. Maybe we're going to move it to the front page, so people can find it easier. But it is there. And my other books are there. The Proper Role of Law Enforcement. You definitely want to get that one. That's a $9 book, or very foundational, but about law enforcement. You want to read some of the stories in there, and my own personal conversion to the Constitution and how that happened. Quite miraculous. And then The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. Folks, you definitely want that book. And another one that you would really want is Are You a David? And that's a very, very powerful book. So all of them are there. I've written about 7 or 8 books, and I even wrote one novel. It's called The Naked Spy. If you really are into spy thrillers and some very true things, I put a lot of things in there that actually happened to me in law enforcement. So I intertwined it with realism and actual events, but it's also based on a fictional character, and what happened to him was, I think, fictional, because I read it by one of my buddies that was in the Army Army intelligence back about 25 years ago, and he said they actually do that. And so you'll need to read the book to see if they actually do that, but it actually brings up what is now in training for law enforcement worldwide, that the international terrorists are going to aim at our grid. They're going to aim at our water supply, and they're going to aim at the grid. That's going to be the big attack.
We've already seen some vulnerabilities in that over the last couple of years, and that's
totally
certainly
a concern. Totally. So I guess I was ahead of the time, because I wrote the book in 2005, but but it's still very, very powerful, and it fits today. In fact, it's more fitting today than ever before. But anyway, the most important book you can order from us is one I hardly make anything off of at all. because, like I say, this is $3. You can get 3 for $5. But go to the website, cspua.org, and order as many of these. This is the best way to really change what's going on in our local governments, because they all believe that the federal government is in charge of everything and that the federal government is our boss. That actually defies historical fact.
It does.
Because the states form the federal government, not the other way around. They are a creature of the states. And they, the biggest fear the founding fathers had was an out of control central government. And so they wanted to make sure that the limitations were very powerful. And what happens? Well, the two-party system took over. And you have to go along with whoever's in power, or they don't get you fundraising, or they don't support you. So
I don't even call them two powers, two parties. It's 1.5 political parties. We do not have, they nationalized the whole thing, and we do not have local representation because of that. The party system is my number one issue. Now, I'm in New Hampshire now. By the way, I'll be ordering a few dozen of those books today, because I've only been out in New Hampshire for a couple of years, but there's some out here called the Free State Project. And
I know it well.
Yeah, these guys get for what federalism is all about. Well, I've started to plug myself into that, and I know some of the state legislators, and I'm going to be starting to have some meetings with them, having them on this channel as well. But going back to what Sheriff Mack just said, Article 7 of the Constitution, the ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of the Constitution between the states, so ratifying the same. The states ratified the Constitution that created the federal government, not the other way around. They are the parent, and it's an important point. So I'm glad you continue to make that. Interesting point about New Hampshire. They do some really smart things in this state. It's a small state, so you can get things done. An individual matters. Totally different than California, where I come from. But, did you know that we have probably the best gun laws in the entire country in New Hampshire? And yeah, absolutely. The easiest will issue, all the stuff. You have to get a special permit to carry across state lines to Massachusetts, because Massachusetts has terrible gun laws. But guess which state has the lowest crime rate in the country? Oh, yeah, that'd be New Hampshire.
Well, Arizona, I think, beat you.
For best gun laws?
Yeah.
We'll have to debate that next time. We'll do a side-by-side comparison.
We have no permits here. You can carry open or concealed, no permits.
Yeah, I've got obviously I've got a number of friends in Arizona, so it's just across the border to California.
But I still don't like the idea anywhere is that the government has the authority to permit you to use your Second Amendment rights. So
yeah, well, it's one of my things. I was on a show last night for the Republic on Patriot Soapbox, and I had to go off on a rant about incorporation of the Bill of Rights to the states, et cetera. But the bottom line is every single federal gun law is unconstitutional by definition. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that. Every single one.
You're absolutely correct. Yep.
Yeah. State gun laws, a little bit of a different issue, but we're not going to do that today because we got some other topics we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
I want to jump into Riverside County simply because it was such a big hit when we were on my show last time. We talked about Vem Miller, the alleged assassin of President Trump, that Sheriff Chad Bianco, who is now running for governor of California, claims that he stopped an assassination. I'm just going to turn the ball over to Sheriff Mack and have you talk about this for a couple minutes. What are the updates on that story with Sheriff Mack? Or with that Sheriff Bianco?
Yeah, as we talked before, I know Vem Miller very well. Look, we're not social friends. I've never been to his home. He's never been to my home. But I've seen him at a lot of freedom events, and he's a videographer, and he's very good at it. And he was going to the Trump rally I think it's in Riverside County. Yeah. Anyway, I know that Sheriff Bianco and his deputies were part of the security detail because it was either really close to Riverside County or it was in Riverside County. I don't remember which, but anyway, they were there. And Vem Miller did something really stupid because he brought a couple of guns with him from Nevada, where he lives, and he has every right to have those. And I like if I'm driving through California, I guarantee you, I do not trust 911 to save me from somebody attacking me or my wife or my grandkids or whoever I'm with. And I bring a gun. I keep it concealed. I don't keep it on my person, but I keep it in either my briefcase or somewhere in the vehicle that it stays very concealed. But I do not trust California. I do not trust their laws. I do not trust their crime rates or their leniency on crime. I take a gun with me wherever I go. Okay. And anyway, regardless of that, Vem Miller made that mistake. And a couple of deputies, when he went through the checkpoint, found guns and some ammo.
If I understand, he actually told the officer,
He
"Hey,
told
I
him.
got it. Yeah,
He
I've got
says,
guns in my
guns."
trunk." But
Yeah,
just so you want
says,
to know,
"I've got guns." Yeah. So he was very open with him, and he wasn't trying to hide anything. There's very few people that are trying to assassinate the president who then tell the checkpoint cops, "I've got guns with me." So yeah, he did that. And then they made a big deal out of it. Bianco did, and his deputies did, and they said, "Oh, we just saved the president. Oh, we just saved the president." Well, the Secret Service and the FBI never agreed with that, and they said no, that he was cleared. He wasn't doing anything. We know this guy. He's at a lot of these things, and so anyway, Vem Miller was really ticked off afterwards. He was not charged with anything of the sort. I think at the beginning he wasn't charged with anything, and then several weeks later, I guess Bianco worked out a charge for illegal possession of a gun or something like that. And then at the very beginning, because I knew Bianco, I thought we were okay friends wise. We've had some disagreements. One of them was when he said that he would not enforce COVID-19 mandates. And then one of his deputies arrested a lady for not taking off her mask in a dollar store or something. And so she was arrested for that. And I think the charges were later dismissed. But Bianco came out very proudly. And we really appreciated his leadership, that he was not going to enforce COVID-19 mandates for the state of California. And we really pushed for Orange County and others to reopen Disneyland and parks and get business back to normal, let people be free, and they wouldn't do it. And these were a bunch of Republicans that we pushed there. This is the deal, though. I respected my relationship with Bianco. One, he's a sheriff, and we work with sheriffs. I respect and know that that Vem Miller did not try to assassinate the president. And Vem called me right after this happened. And so I said to Sheriff Bianco, I called him and I said, "Hey, texted him. If I know Vem Miller, and maybe the three of us should sit down and solve this issue and get rid of it." And Bianco basically told me to shove it and mind my own business. So I told him I will not bring up the subject with you again. But Bianco has kind of gone on a tirade against me and against our organization, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, which was founded for people. It really wasn't founded for sheriffs or peace officers. Yes, they can benefit from it and they can learn from it. And we hope to get everyone educated in this country that works in law enforcement, especially sheriffs. But it was formed for the people, that we restore civil rights, that we restore individual liberty via the constitutional sheriffs and peace officers of this country. Our calling is to serve the American people, is to protect their rights, to protect ultimately life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is our calling. That is our job. And if we don't know what the rights of the people are, how are we as law enforcement officers, how are we as public servants going to be able to truly serve the people and protect their rights if we don't know what they are? And so that's why we exist. And so he really got mad at me after that and really kind of badmouthed me and whatnot. And I guess that's his right. But I will say this. it came up again, and we have this on tape. And in fact, Vem Miller sent it to me. And I've asked Vem several times, you're still going forward with this lawsuit, are you not? Because I think that's the best way to correct this huge error. Because obviously he didn't want me to help him get rid of this whole thing and just take it off his plate. So then we have a video of a reporter at a press conference. And I think it was where Bianco was talking about running for governor. And I guess he really wanted Trump support, whatnot. Well, this was a way for Bianco and his office to kick off running for governor, and that is put it out nationwide that he just saved the president's life from a would-be assassin.
Which makes no sense whatsoever when he gave the initial press conference, because just 4 hours earlier, he'd released Vem Miller on $500 bail.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't put presidential attempted assassins out loose in the public on $500 bail. That's just, he knew what he was doing. Right. It's demonstrably false that he stopped an assassination, and he knew it at the time.
Well, then I guess he doubled down a few weeks later, maybe just a couple of weeks later. And a reporter asked him, do you still believe that you prevented an assassination attempt on Trump? And his response to me, I find totally shocking and rather, I'll use what Scalia said when he was talking about the other 4 justices who dissented in my Supreme Court case. He said, they are using empty, formalistic reasoning of the highest order. Well, I will say that to Bianco. His response was empty, formalistic reasoning of the highest order. Because he said this is a quote, in our minds, we did. Who says that? Yeah, in our minds, we did.
We talked before going on the air, and when you said that to me, I was dumbfounded. But I've never been a law enforcement officer, but it seems to me your training, there's a little bit higher burden of proof than in our minds before you're going to press charges.
Exactly, just a little bit, yes. Brady.
Evidence, things like that. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Yeah, no evidence whatsoever that an attempt was done or intended in any way. And he still said, in our minds. Well, people could say, well, yeah, in your sick mind, anything could happen, but it was laughable for a law enforcement professional to say such a thing is just empty formalistic reasoning of the highest order. And I guess that's how you say dumb, but in legalese. And so I've only had one other contact with Sheriff Bianco since this time, and I've tried to be fair, and I've tried to still stay a little bit congenial with him if there's ever any interaction. Well, a good friend of mine is a pastor in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he saw that Bianco, one, claimed to be a constitutional sheriff back a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, and that he also was running for governor. And he asked me if I was supporting him. And I said, well, he and I have kind of had a falling out, but I said, if you want to support him, I'm sure he would appreciate that. And he says, can you make the call for me? And I said, sure. So I believe I texted, pretty sure I texted. Yes, I did. I texted Sheriff Bianco, and I said, hey, this John Padula from Coeur d'Alene wants to meet you. He's going to be traveling through Southern California, and he wants to stop by and say hello or whatever. He would like to meet you in person. And I said, it sounds like he wants to support you for your campaign. And he said, oh, good. Thank you so much. And I gave him the information for Pastor Padula. And so a few weeks later, I called John and I said, hey, did you ever meet with Sheriff Bianco? He goes, no, he never called. So I don't understand it. Look, I know he's not in his state, but everybody in high profile cases, they campaign nationwide. They certainly ask for donations nationwide. I just donated to Byron Donald's campaign. I met him in Florida a few weeks ago. I really like him. and I made a very small donation to his campaign. I wish I could do more. I don't donate to very many campaigns. I will not be donating to Sheriff Bianco's. I do not support him for sheriff anymore, and I do not support him for governor. That's just the way it goes.
For my audience, and I'm still pretty plugged into the grassroots movement in Southern California, he is not getting a lot of acceptance with the grassroots part of California's movement. My company is supporting one of his opponents for governor. That'd be Leo Zaki. So I do have a dog in this fight. So I'm not giving an endorsement or a counter endorsement because I actually have a involvement with one of his opponents. So that I do need to get that out there. Let's hope he comes to his senses and finds a good way to serve the public for the rest of his life, because there were some good things that Bianco did good as a sheriff of Riverside County. He has he's always been one of the best of issuing concealed carry permits compared to where I lived, which was San Diego County, which was a totally different story. So, Bianco had a good reputation for a while. Then he starts doing things like taking a knee for Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, let's move on from that. I appreciate you giving us that update because, again, that's something very important to a lot of my audience, the Southern California portion.
And, what else? I don't know if it's been filed yet, but Vem Miller says he's still going ahead with the lawsuit, which I think they've run into a lot of problems. And that's another problem I have with Bianco. He has refused to give the recordings to Vem Miller's lawyer.
He's blocking discovery.
That's blocking discovery, and that's actually against the law.
Yeah, so, I would think so. Well, I know it's a pretty big dollar sign Vem's going after now. Is he going after the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, or is he going after Bianco personally?
Well, yeah. All
right,
I agree with you. Let's move on.
All right. Well, let's jump into what else the CSPOA is up to these days. I was given a briefing or an email. You've been talking about deportation, how sheriffs should be helping to keep it peaceful and effective.
Yeah, first of all, it's just common sense here in one way, and maybe several actually. But the biggest one is no one knows the county, at least in government. There might be some people out there, and we'd love to have them involved as well. We, the people, need to be part of this. But the sheriffs know their counties. They know the people. They have eyes and ears everywhere in the county. So especially to locate sleeper cells, the effort from Tom Homan needs to have sheriffs backing and involved in this process. And I know for a fact, because I was actually helping Tom at the beginning. I haven't heard from him for a while, which is fine. But I told him if he ever needs us for anything, we are here. We have his back. And I referred names of sheriffs to him, especially some in Texas, that wanted to help. And this one sheriff from Texas called and said, please give him my name and my number. And I did. And then we put it out to all our lists of sheriffs that if we're really going to clean this criminal element out of our cities and states and counties and our country, we, the sheriffs, and I'm not a sheriff anymore, but the sheriffs of this country have got to be involved. And so, especially if we're going to get those sleeper cells that I was just talking about. And the cartels have hidden for decades behind legitimate businesses. They'll form a trucking company or some sort of even restaurants, and they run their money laundering through those businesses. And then those businesses actually make donations to politicians. And that has happened in Arizona. And boy, those politicians here love that big cartel money. And that also happens nationwide now. Every state is now a border state, not just the four that are geographically tied to Mexico. And so,
no, we see it. We see it here in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah.
Go to the local grocery.
Oh sure.
Go to the local grocery store. Half the people working there don't speak English, and that was not the case 2 years ago.
Yeah, they're there. They're everywhere. And I speak pretty good Spanish, and I relate with the Hispanic people, the Latin American culture. My degree is in Latin American studies. I tried to get in the FBI with that, but that's another story. And it never worked out. Thank God I didn't get
Thank
in.
goodness.
Oh, yeah. But my dad was a retired FBI agent, and I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. That's before I really knew who Hoover was, and before I saw what the FBI is really up to weaponize themselves and to be a hack for whoever the president is. They'll do whatever they're told to go after his enemies. And that's happened for a long time, at least 40, 50, 60 years. That's been
really
what the FBI would do.
It really stepped up right around right after YTK. It became probably much more. But yeah, it's been good.
Yeah,
from day one. Hoover was running a protection racket. So yeah.
So the FBI and IRS actually attacked me one time when I was running for sheriff in Utah County after I finished my 2 terms here in Arizona. And I went back to Utah and ran, and I won the county convention 2-1 over my incumbent opponent. And so I had momentum. All of us said it was going to be extremely close. Even my opponent, the incumbent, said it was going to be extremely close. Then in comes the FBI and the IRS, and they raid my office. And the Provo Daily Herald, the only newspaper in that county, or anything of any significance, the headline was so big you couldn't have made it any bigger. Mack raided by the FBI. It was already ready. It was already in print by the time this happened. And like I said, 3 days before the election, it was maximum time to give me the most damage and minimum time for me to do any damage control. And I lost badly. And so all the undecided vote went to him and a few more. But and guess what? Afterwards, I never heard from the IRS or the FBI ever again in my life.
No
Never.
charges, no letter, nothing.
Nothing. Nope. They sent back a box of papers that they took out of my desk, and that's all I ever heard from them again. So
if they were able to get a judge to sign off on a warrant.
Well, they put my name on a search warrant that actually belonged to another client of mine, but I had nothing to do with what he was doing. And I didn't know it, but he was selling securities without a license. That's the extent of it. He went to prison. But obviously, if it was so important to put my name on that search warrant, why wasn't it important enough to follow up with an interview, an interrogation, an indictment even? Take me to a grand jury, for heaven's sakes. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Obviously, they got what they wanted. Me out. So.
Well, it's interesting. Politics is a very dirty business, even in a state like Utah, where you would expect it to be not quite so much. Not everywhere I've been, it's the same story. So yeah,
it was a dirty race from the get-go, and the local Republicans were part of all of this, and I ran as a Republican. I don't care about parties. When I was a sheriff in Arizona, I was a Democrat. You had to be a Democrat in my county, but my views have never changed. Party affiliation that I signed off on, I was never a Democrat. I was never a national Democrat. My views about life and liberty and property and the Constitution never changed. I ran on a very solid constitutional platform. And obviously, I sued the Democrat of the head of the Democrat Party, Bill Clinton. And so while I was sheriff, I was suing him. And look, the biggest miracle is I sued the Clintons, I beat them, and I lived to tell about it. So
that's it, which is an oddity.
But what we're doing now is there's several things that we're involved with, and we're still very involved with sheriffs. And one of them is that we want to raise the funds. And folks, I'm asking for your help on this, because this is going to help all of us, especially those of you who live in Washington State and Oregon and California and area of the West. But this is nationwide. They're really going after sheriffs, and they're attacking the office of sheriff. And they're attacking the office of sheriff just about in every state, except maybe for Florida, because the governor there and President Trump totally backed the sheriffs. And 67 sheriffs signed off on helping the federal government with deportation. All 67, even the liberal Democrats, wanted and finally decided, yes, we've got to have solidarity and unity, and we're joining this, and we do want the cartels and the terrorists out of our country that were allowed in or brought in by the Biden administration. And those are very significant differences. There's a difference between allowing a crime and actually participating in it. And
you mean like with chartered flights? They were flying them in on a daily basis, busing them around the country in the middle of the night. How much of our taxpayer dollars went to that? And
a lot. Yeah, and all that's criminal. All of that's criminal. Almost as criminal as funding Planned Parenthood. Almost. But that needs to stop too, and that needs to be number one on President Trump's list now. Let's defund Planned Parenthood. Did I say stop abortion? We're never going to stop abortion. Okay. I wish we could. I pray to God that we could stop this evil. But funneling taxpayer dollars to Planned Parenthood is absolutely the most corrupt spending we've ever done in this country. They're not part of our government, and they provide no government service. And then Planned Parenthood takes $800 million a year, uses it for killing babies, whatever they do, and then they funnel back a lot of that money to the same politicians that funneled it to them in the first place so that they have money in their campaign coffers. That's what's happening to our tax dollars. And folks, they don't care about it. And some Republicans support that as well. So we need to get involved, getting a hold of Mike Johnson and anyone else, our senators, our congressmen, and tell them we no longer support and we never have supported this kind of evil funding. And that needs to happen. The other evil thing that's going on is that the state of Washington is trying to destroy the office of sheriff. And so we're planning to go there to have a CSPOA seminar, and other sheriffs from all across the country are going to be coming there. And we're going to invite all the sheriffs from California and Idaho and Utah and Oregon, and obviously all of them from Washington, to come there. And we're going to invite the press so that they can hear the truth that Washington State, the legislature, the governor, and the AG, who is now suing some of the sheriffs there for helping with deportation, suing them for helping to try to keep their counties and state criminal free, crime free, and to reduce the criminal element that exists there. They're now suing sheriffs. And I'm surprised they haven't tried to charge them criminally, but they're suing them. Attorney General Brown is suing them. And we want to go set the record straight as to how they have no authority to be doing this. And we will show them documentation from my Supreme Court case and documentation from the U.S. Constitution and the oath of office. And folks, we need to raise about $50,000 to make this come even close to happening. And that's flying these other sheriffs from in around the country, finding a hotel for them, and finding a venue to have this in. And we're looking at Pierce County because that sheriff there is very supportive of what we're doing, and they're attacking him. And so this is what we plan to do. We believe it's vitally important that we stop this and nip it in the bud. But and I will tell you right now that other national sheriff's organizations are not helping with this. One of the sheriffs said, hey, get the other sheriff's groups involved in this. Let's work together on this. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried to contact them, and they don't even return my calls. They don't want to stand with the groups that attack the federal government, because they're in bed with the feds, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I will put the links to the CSPOA in the comments of this video. If you're watching, just scroll down. So hopefully people do donate to this worthy cause. This goes hand in hand with the entire defund the police. They don't want to defund the police. What they want to do is to defund the local police. They want a national police force, a Gestapo. This is what the end goal has always been. And we don't want that. You want your local law enforcement to be handled by people who know their local communities.
That's right.
The last thing you want is someone from DC flying and making decisions on a local level. And that's really what this is all about. It's just like we want our politics local. We want the law enforcement to be local, the people you know.
Exactly. And because we are a republic, which means the people choose their elected officials. And in Washington State now, they have taken the largest county and stolen that stewardship of the people. They now appoint the sheriff in King County, Washington, and they're going to keep pushing that statewide. And folks, we've got to, like I said, nip this in the bud. And that's why we're going to the belly of the beast, Washington State, and we're going to let them know the truth, that they are not in charge of their sheriff. The people are in charge of the sheriff, period. And that's the way we have to keep it. And if we let the sheriff become a political appointee of the governor or the local county commissioners or the county manager or a political committee, and he answers now to another bureaucrat. The sheriff is not a bureaucrat. He is by, for, and of the people, elected and appointed to that office. And they say whether or not he continues, not a committee or not politicians.
And Washington State's it's not that unusual. It is a very red state. Yes. That's dominated by a couple of blue cities. The vast majority, I spent time in Washington State. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and there a lot of good people up there are getting, they're getting the raw end of the stick by because their politics have been completely twisted, and it is dominated by the blue cities. It's not the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to give myself a plug here real quick because you kind of segued into one of my favorite topics. You're going to start hearing, even people who follow me know this is my number one issue, is overturning Reynolds v. Sims, which basically what the founding fathers did in Philadelphia is that they had to come up with how are we going to pick a legislature? Is it going to be one representative per state, which means the small states can dominate the big states, or is it going to be all portion on populations, which means the big states can dominate the small states? Well, They came up with a compromise. You got to protect the big from the small and the small from the big. That exact same formula works in the states, and that was taken away from us with 1964 with Reynolds v. Sims, where they basically said having one state senator per county was undemocratic. But in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, we are guaranteed a Republican form of government, small r. And we think that this current Supreme Court can actually return that. And that goes really hand in hand with what the CSPOA stands for.
That's a great cause.
Yeah. And that's why I'm here in New Hampshire. I may be able to make some inroads and see if we can get that put on the floor of the state legislature. And if that happens, if they can make it a law, it gets fast tracked to the Supreme Court when the challenges come, because they will have original jurisdiction. And this current Supreme Court, if you listen to some of the dissents and opinions over the last 5-7 years, they're moving closer and closer back toward federalism than we've been in our living lifetime, and I'd say more than a century. So it's a great time to have these conversations.
Yes.
But yeah. All right. So what else are you guys up to?
Well, I attended the Florida Sheriff's Association conference back 3 or 4 weeks ago, and really well received. Good group of sheriffs there. And now I'm in touch with the Arkansas Sheriff's Association and want to do some speaking there and presentation in their conference coming up in January of 2026. Can't believe we're saying 2026, but I just turned 72 in December of last year, and now I'm already 72 and a half. That was just yesterday, it seems. I hate time. Time is flying way too fast, and wow. But regardless, I'm not retiring. I thought I could maybe a couple of years ago when I turned 70. I thought I maybe could retire. It's just not in the cards, and I'm going to keep working. I work full time on this, both my wife and I. And folks, the sheriff movement is just about the only peaceful and effective solution we have left. And so I ask each of you, one, make a donation to our conference. Excuse me. Make a donation to our conference. Make sure we get that done. That's going to be huge to turn this thing around. Secondly, become a member of our posse. CSPOA.org. Become a member of our CSPOA posse, which is a whopping $11 a month. That's it. We don't want to gouge anybody. You can also even go cheaper to like $8.50 a month and do $99 a year. But this is not a contract. If you don't like what we're doing, quit. But if you like what we're seeing, that we actually have a peaceful and effective solution to provide people a person, an avenue, if you will, where people can turn for peace, safety, protection, and liberty right in your own hometown, in your county, that there's a sheriff standing there with the banner of the Constitution across his chest, across his life, that he's dedicated his life to protecting the principles within our Constitution, and thereby protect, preserve, uphold, and defend the United States Constitution and your God-given civil rights. This is a return to protecting civil rights. Yeah, we talk about Martin Luther King in our presentations. We talk about Rosa Parks, how she was arrested by law enforcement for not giving her seat to a white man. Folks, I can't believe that happened in my lifetime, but it did. I was 3 years old when that happened. Folks, we have got to stop what's going on in our country. And I'm not criticizing President Trump in any way, but this thing is too big for one man to conquer. And we've got to take America back county by county. It doesn't matter who the president is. We still have to do that. And how long is President Trump going to be in power? It could stop in a year and a half and during the midterm. It could completely switch then. And I hope it doesn't, because I still want Trump to have the backing of Congress. And that's why he and Mike Johnson need to get together for defunding Planned Parenthood. So, folks, we ask you to join the cause of liberty. In fact, Jefferson warned us that if the people aren't involved in this, what did he say? The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. He actually used the word freedom. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Are we involved? Are we vigilant? Are we involved in the holy cause of liberty, as Patrick Henry called it? We have to, or it won't work. So I'm giving you an opportunity on a silver platter. We train you every Wednesday how to work with your local officials, especially your sheriff. And you get to participate. It's interactive with us on our training an hour every Wednesday. And we'll send you, as soon as you join up, we'll send you the link for the training. So please get involved. It's all about American ideals and saving our country and restoring our Constitution as the supreme law of the land. The solution is not if we move forward. It's behind us. It's in our history. It's in Independence Hall. It's in our Constitution. And so, folks, we're asking you to be a part of that. Join us today and help save America.
Well, I would have joined right here on the air, but I just don't want to put my credit card information out there for the whole public to see. But I will be signing up. The Planned Parenthood one really strikes home. People aren't really familiar with Planned Parenthood's history. It is a eugenics-based organization, which is about racial supremacy. It's about the Malthusian depopulation. Bill Gates' father, Bill Gates Sr., was on the board of directors of Planned Parenthood. This is the same Bill Gates who's running around the world trying to, a computer guy trying to teach us about vaccines, bioengineering mosquitoes to spread viruses. This is one of the most vile schools of thought in human history. They also called themselves the technocrats back in the day. They went out of fashion for 30 or 40 years because, their exact philosophy ended up showing up in Nazi Germany when they started doing medical experiments on human beings. But these are vile people, and Sheriff Mack's already explained the whole circle jerk of how taxpayer dollars get funneled to these people. I had the statistic I was trying to find. It's something like 98% of all of their medical treatments are abortion. They say they provide health care, women's health care. That's not what they do. That's a cover. But it really is a money laundering machine. And the good thing is that information's out there, and I think we're going to put a stop to it in the very near future. So that is a good cause. You've also talked about the IRS and the federal. Yeah.
That needs to be on Trump's list too. Abolish the IRS, for God's sakes. Freedom and the IRS cannot coexist, and they haven't. And freedom has really been diminished because of them.
First income tax, 1861. Lincoln imposed it. Actually, Lincoln did it. It was Salmon P. Chase, his Treasury Secretary. It's supposed to be 3% tax on people making over $800 a year. That's about 28 grand a year. That gets abolished after the war in 1872, but they brought it back very shortly thereafter. Pretty much the exact same time, they created these tax-free foundations so that these robber barons could hide their generational wealth and never pay taxes for generations, while the rest of us funded government that basically they controlled, because they controlled the institutions. And the IRS is the enforcement mechanism for that.
Exactly. So Federal Reserve, don't hire a new one, fire them all. Fire the IRS. And let's get back to freedom. Can we still pay some taxes, even if they kept the federal income tax? If the federal income tax was ever fair and simple from Democrats and Republicans, we wouldn't even need the IRS. And we don't need them. They're, as you just explained, they're a collection agency for the Federal Reserve, a bunch of international banksters. The Federal Reserve is not federal. No question about that. And we've got to get rid of all of that. The Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution requires Congress to coin money and regulate the value thereof. And now that's been turned over to one person, Jerome Powell. One person. And he's not even part of our government. Not at all. No.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm sure you're very familiar with our good friend G. Edward Griffin, and he has
I read the book.
Yeah, I've actually been to his house. He's a great man. His wife is a gracious host, and Doug and I got to visit them a couple of years back. And
He's a good friend,
he should be coming on this channel soon. We've been trying to coordinate that, but he's got a saying. He says they call it the Federal Reserve banking system. It's not federal. There are no reserves. It's not a bank, and there ain't much of a system. So
Yeah.
it is one of the great Creature from Jekyll Island is a must read. In fact, that's probably the book that really set me on this path 30 years ago of questioning everything that our government does. And then it needs to be questioned. It's not that we don't hate the United States of America government. We just hate the people who are in it, what they've done over the decades.
I hate corruption.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's and our government is corrupt, and it's almost designed that way. And it wasn't originally. It crept in incrementally, across 2 centuries. It's and we're at the point right now where it's either got to be fixed or we're going to have to start all over. Anything else you want to talk about today?
I think that's really been it. I really appreciate being with you, and I love your audience. And folks, it's time to get involved. We can't just watch the parade anymore. Get involved, and we're with you all the way. And thanks again so much for having me.
Always a pleasure. You are welcome on my channel anytime. Until the next time, everybody, cheers.